In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at colder air than I've been expecting really for the end of February into early March. And there will be warmer times. Think more similarly to, I think it was late January into early February, where we would have like a cool down, a warm up, a cool down, a warm up. We're going to be moving into something like that, but it looks very possible that the cold might ultimately be more prevalent than the warmth, aka basically lasting longer when the cold moves in versus when the warmth moves in. This is going to create a pretty unstable environment, so we should see some more thunderstorm flare-ups again like we saw in earlier February. So severe weather going to be a possibility, and also numerous snowfall threats still, which is really not what I was expecting, but here we are talking about it. And we're going to just dive into it. Before I really get into it, sorry I missed yesterday's video. We got a foot of snow, a whopping 12 inches here where I am from. So I was super excited about that, filming for the vlog, which of course you can check out on the top right corner of your screen, the description, or the pinned comment down below. The video isn't out for that yet, but it will be coming soon. In the meantime, we do have a January one up that you guys can check out. But took one day off. I did that the last snowstorm as well, so I hope you guys understand. Probably a top 3 snowstorm for me living down here that I've experienced down here at least. So super, super cool stuff. Totally snowed in. Let's take a look here at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, and we can see that this runs from February 26th through March 2nd. Ultimately, mostly warm for the west and central states still through this time frame, which again is quite different from what we were expecting to see. Neutral to even below normal temperatures for the east here. Let's take a look at the precipitation, and there is some reason to feel a little bit optimistic for these areas. I know that this winter has been disappointing for some of you. Just the consistent near misses, or like the models calling for you to have snow and then just trending to the south. I can't remember the last time that almost every single snowstorm has basically consistently trended south into areas like mine, and obviously I'm thankful for it. It was super cool, but at the same time it's like, why do I have more snow on the season than areas in, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, down in Virginia? It just doesn't really add up, especially when you consider that we had below normal temperatures basically for December and January for sure, and probably going to be February as well. So there wasn't like a lack of potential. It's just like luck. It's just totally makes no sense. With that being said, we do have chances for above average precipitation. Will that kind of finally make up for it and give some of these areas some snowfall? We will see, but obviously confidence is going to be overall lower than it typically would be, just because of how things have gone. 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, which will run from the 28th through the 6th of March. This one looking even more cold in the east, as you can tell. Warm air is along the west, not quite as strong. We can see some areas where it's kind of near normal chances. We can tell the coldest temperatures will overall be located here across a lot of your Great Lakes, kind of diving southward into parts of the Mid-Atlantic, and also a lot of this moving into the northeast. So it's not super widespread, although we do have near normal chances here throughout the southeast and some of the kind of deeper south there, as well as the Midwest. So there is chances that this will be a little bit more expansive. But again, if you guys have been watching my videos for a week or two, and I'm not afraid to admit it, but I definitely had a very strong feeling that it was going to be much warmer than this during this time frame. So I totally, potentially, obviously things could start to look different, but fumbled the bag on that one. When we look here at the precipitation, it seems like they just kind of, feel like there's a good chance that a lot of these areas will have above normal precipitation, but I highly doubt that from the Rockies eastward, we're going to entirely have above average precipitation. So there's a couple of areas that they pinpointed, like just to the east of the Rockies and here in the deep south, which again, we'll be watching for severe weather in here. It could be kind of a bad sign that we could have a lot of these kind of cold fronts working their way through this area. This is the same exact region where we saw a lot of activity in early February. So again, pretty bad sign there. Let's take a look at the past 20 days. We now collectively have it. So this is the first 20 whole days of February, and clearly the coldest temperatures have been for the Northwest into the Northern Plains. But we can tell that a lot of these areas are starting to cool down pretty rapidly, like the Midwest, Great Lakes, parts of the far north Mid-Atlantic, and then the Northeast. I suspect that we're going to continue to kind of chop away at this from north to south. So we'll start to see areas in here cooling as well. Might hold on to some of this by the end of the month, but I think we're going to have a much colder look by the time we're looking back 8 days from now. When we look at the European model, we're going to work our way through this one. Again, numerous snowfall chances on some of the models. I do have a couple of time frames that I think have the highest potential. We're at a very weird time here because, you know, we just had this storm move through. We're going to get a little bit quieter for a minute here. And then in the medium to long range, there's some chances. And a lot of times when we have like, it almost seems like we're closing a chapter and entering a new one, kind of turning the page. And I feel like we're going to learn a lot more over the coming days. There's a lot of question marks here. I'm just going to put that out there. So let's just take a look at it. I mean, we'll start here with Friday afternoon tomorrow from the time I'm making this video. And again, quiet is really the theme here. We do have warmth out west and some cooler temperatures overall for a lot of the east. So another cold day there. By the time we reach Saturday, it's a lot of the same. Some of this warmth is starting to intrude further eastward, but still these areas are very cold across a lot of your Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic here. A little bit of a storm system moving on shore to the northwest as well by Saturday the 22nd. And that little bit of a storm becomes a lot more prevalent later on. Here we're looking at Sunday, February 23rd. Some rainfall and snowfall around for a lot of the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies area. And we do have a Western Gulf storm system here just offshore of Texas and south of Louisiana, and we're going to be watching this area here, but we can tell as of this moment here, the cold is a bit limited here to this region. So there's not a lot to work with here for snowfall, at least. And that one just kind of moves out. I mean, there's not really a jet stream for it to latch onto. Let me just draw it out for you guys, but typically I'll start with what we have here as far as the jet stream. So something like this, and we can tell this storm is just sitting here and it just slides to the east. It's too far from that jet stream to kind of latch on, so there's nothing to pull it to the north. What you'd want to see is the low in the same spot, this ridge in the west still, but you would want to see a jet stream like this, or even, you know, if it's cutting inland for some of you guys further inland, something like this is where this low would just latch onto the jet stream and catch a ride, basically. Kind of like the turtles in Finding Nemo is what that reminds me of, just, you know, latching on, going along for the ride. That's what the storm needs to do, and we just don't have that there. So that's why we're just seeing this one, even though there's a lot of potential. This is a very rich, moist storm, and it could totally be a major one, but the jet stream is not cooperating, and it does get some pull up the coast after it's well offshore. So again, not a whole lot of potential there. As we reach towards Thursday the 27th, this is really our next little storm signal, and again, now you have this digging jet stream like I was just talking about, and we have this storm hopping on for a ride. Let's go back a minute. It originates with the jet stream up here. So the jet stream looks like this, and we're about to get a major trough moving in here and a low developing here, and it's just going to kind of surf around it. So as time moves on, we see this picks up some steam. The cold air is clearly diving southward. A lot of that happening due to this warmth in the east pushing northward. This forces the cold to pretty violently move around that area and dive really far south in a hurry. And that's exactly what we see happening here with a bit of a storm system. So some rainfall. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some thunderstorms in there as well for later on next week, Wednesday, Thursday. This is already a week from now, so this is already pretty far down the road. Again, big question marks because we're mostly quiet until about a week from now. Not a whole lot of potential between now and then. We do see this low starts to really develop by the time we're looking at Thursday afternoon. That'll be the 27th. Some snowfall here mixing in, but this cold is a little bit marginal. For how intense that trough looks, there's not a lot to work with yet. It does really develop, though, as we move overnight, 1 a.m. here. This low pops up near eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, snowfall for Ohio and Pennsylvania, basically northward into upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But who knows? Is the south trend going to continue? You know, this is 186 hours out. Is it going to be here? Or is it going to be down here? Really, the biggest piece to this puzzle piece, to me, is likely there will be a storm. This is pretty soon, considering. We do have this jet stream diving southward. I mean, this is reaching the Gulf of Mexico, and then it is reaching far to the north. Just called it the Gulf of Mexico out of habit there. I get so many comments. People either want me to call it the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America or whatnot. For now, I'm just calling it the Gulf. That is what it is, the Gulf. Who cares what who cares what the name is, right? It's just a Gulf. It's a piece of water. To me, I'm much more concerned about the implications it has for the weather, not the name of it. So we're calling it the Gulf, and everybody knows where I'm talking about when I say that. But basically, with all of this cold air diving southward, whether the storm is here, 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 basically to the west of that low, there's likely to be snow. So it could trend south, north. If that cold is there like that, there will be snow for somebody. But it's just so hard for me to be like, okay, it'll probably be somewhere near here, because if I said that with the last system, I would have been totally wrong because it looked just like this. And then look, I got a foot of snow and people north of DC got basically nothing. So that is a crazy, crazy difference for 186 hours out to see that much trending. So we will monitor this together. That's what I'm going to suggest that you do. We will monitor this storm. Again, the cold air is expected to be there. That's not something that has been changing very much this winter, so we don't anticipate that to change too much. When a model is showing this, it likely happens so far this year. And also, when the models are pretty consistent about showing a low, the low does stay. It just doesn't stay in place. It moves around a lot from run to run. So we're going to continue to watch this cold air, this low, around the 27th, 28th together. And hopefully we'll be able to pick up on a sense of what the trend is looking like and try to give you an idea of where it'll end up. But, be advised, these have been significantly trending in any direction, but mostly south, actually. We will watch. That doesn't mean it's for sure going to happen this time. That has been the trend. Maybe that'll be good for Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Maybe it'll slide south just to you guys. Who knows? As we move towards Friday afternoon, that snowfall is still going on. The cold air is continuing to reach towards the East Coast, so looking even more primed for snow. Then we get a kind of clipper system, these weaker lows that move from Canada down into the cold air. Usually these are all snow, if not very close to being all snow events. So this is for Friday, Saturday. Great Lakes, Northeast get some snowfall and some rainfall off the East Coast, but this is another excellent time frame, March 2nd. I mean, we have a ridge just to the east of the West Coast. And then we have this cold air once again really infiltrating the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. So that is still the trend for early March. As we keep going, this is an interesting storm system because it's not even a winter storm at all. We just have this low and it kind of meanders across. But it does look like we get some flared up thunderstorms. Obviously, there's a lot of moisture, a lot of potential there. So definitely important to watch, especially when we're moving into a pattern that is very supportive of severe weather, like I'm expecting the upcoming one to be. So we will watch that. The West Coast starts to get hammered around this early March timeframe as well. Snowfall for the Cascades, the Sierra Nevada, rainfall for the lower elevation areas. And as far as I could tell, the models have handled these West Coast storms just fine. It's really once you move east of the Rockies where issues start to arise this year. Let's take it towards Monday the 3rd. And again, this kind of potential thunderstorm system is continuing to track eastward through the deeper south. This snow event is really reaching more towards the Rockies, if anything. We do have a little bit of a West Coast trough. This is an interesting pattern. It's more of a double dipping trough where we have the west pretty cold with snow, a ridge just to the east of all that, pushing into a lot of the plains. And what we're seeing is a lot of the cold is pouring to the east, and a lot of it is pouring into the west. But that ridge is moving it both ways out of the way, to the east and the west from that point. Pretty interesting look. As we keep going towards Tuesday the 4th, a little bit more major of a low pressure system near Texas and Oklahoma, 988. Generally, that is considered to be quite strong. We do see snowfall again for the Rockies and parts of the plains. We are very far out by this point, so take it with a grain of salt. This is when we start to become a lot less confident with even the temperature air masses and the storms even really happening around specific time frames that we're seeing it. Like for the 27th, 28th, we're feeling really, really confident that there's likely to be a low in that cold air. Once you move like another few days and, past the 10-day mark especially, that confidence starts to really go down. So this is when we're watching for trends. So maybe the trend is colder air at times in the west here with some lows moving around it. Pretty classic track here. around Texas, Oklahoma, moving northward. So if we continue to see this trend, that could indicate that sometime in early March we could be seeing this. But again, specifics is when things get complicated beyond 10 days. Wednesday the 5th here, we end up with this low moving up into Illinois. Clearly a warm front look here. The cold front is a little bit weird here. It's a little bit more progressive than the low, but it does appear like we could have a thunderstorm and severe weather threat here for the southeast on Wednesday the 5th. Very far out, but if the trend continues, we could be watching for these storm systems rising up through here, bringing, potential thunderstorms and severe weather to the deep south and southeast. Maybe it'll even be right for this time frame. Wouldn't surprise me that much, but time will tell. We do get this trough more so expanding in the west. So this is much more of what I expected for early March and late February overall, but we're not getting it until March 5th, and it's probably pretty brief, but we end up with very cold air in the west, warm air in the east due to this warm front out ahead of that low, some snowfall in the upper Midwest, and also for a lot of the southwest here, especially the mountainous areas. Thursday, we kind of move through in a similar fashion. It does appear like this trough wants to take aim at the east again. Like I said, short-lived. We do have a low between the Hudson Bay and Great Lakes, which is very indicative of cold air moving into the east, so wouldn't surprise me one bit. And we have building warmth in the west, another kind of omen for warm or colder air moving into the east. We do have thunderstorms and potential severe weather flaring up along the Gulf again, so as we move into the spring, this is going to be a much more common sight. So definitely be on the lookout for that as we move forward. And we see that this storm along the Gulf just kind of spreads in through a lot of the southeast and deep south here. This low moves up, and this colder air looks to be moving in, but there is a bit of a southeast ridge here with this storm system that's putting up a fight. So big question marks towards the end of this model run. Let's take a look at the GFS model. I want to watch some of these specific dates in particular. As we move a little bit beyond everything that's going on here, we do see this storm system moves from the northern plains down into parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley right around the 27th. And again, on this model as well, we end up with the cold air around all of these areas, moving in and actually becoming more intense and more expansive as we move through Thursday and Friday. And we do have a low offshore of the East Coast, a little bit more south this time around, but snowfall all over the place for parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This will be our next storm system to monitor. But again, we're at like 7 days out here, so there is a lot of changes that could move in. That one moves out, and then we see another really intense cool down. We have a parent low up here to the north, which is pulling this cold front in, which is pulling the cold in. But something interesting happens here as well. On this model, we get a secondary low set up off the East Coast. That could pose a snow threat to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Time will tell, but what would need to happen is this low would need to become a lot more dominant than this to end up bringing any substantial snow threat to these areas. But this is a time frame to watch because, again, the ingredients are there. The very cold air along the East Coast. And this time around, actually, something interesting is we have a very vertical jet stream up the East Coast, as you could tell. So any low that develops down here is very likely to stick at least semi-close to the coast, bringing some snow threats here to these coastal areas. A lot of our storms this year have like swung underneath and moved almost directly out, a lot more horizontal than this look here. So could be an interesting time frame to watch in early March if this stays true. As we move on, again, we're watching the deeper south, but for that second third of March, we do see that for the deep south, some thunderstorms rolling through. Another one here for the 4th, 5th, and then another one there for the 6th, 7th, 8th. So thunderstorms becoming a lot more prevalent. We do end up with a Midwest Great Lakes snowstorm potentially in the first week of March. Again, pay attention to the pattern and trend, not really the specifics at this time frame. But we end up with a lot of energy off the southeast coast here, and a lot of the deep south into the southeast, really, on numerous occasions here. And towards the end of the model run, we have cold air diving back into the east, just like the European model. So really looks like the cold is going to be a part of our pattern, at least for the time being, although there will be more warm-ups at times as well. So a lot of fluctuations, a lot of intense storms after next week. So after the 26th, 27th especially. So we will be watching this closely. Let's take a look here at the overall precipitation. And because of all of this, we really do see an increase here for a lot of the east. Also, the west overall does a little bit better. So when we look at the anomalies, although we're not really above average in the east, this is a step up. We also see a lot of the west is getting quite a bit When we look at the total snowfall in the European model, although it's not as crazy as what we've seen throughout the winter, we are moving into March, so we can expect this to kind of start to back off a little bit over time. The Mountainous West does phenomenal. Really a big snow hole here through a lot of the plains and Midwest. But then we start to see some Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic and Northeast potential. This will be something to watch, but for now, this looks very interior. Very close to Canada there the whole way along almost. Again, could trend south, could trend north, could stay put, but the trend has been it's going to trend one way or another. So we will be watching it close. GFS model a little bit more optimistic, especially for the plains and Midwest here, but also for parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. This looks a little better as well. So both models have some hope left over for sure for some snowfall here late in the season. With all that being said, we do upload almost every single day. Be sure to subscribe for those videos. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.